All right, today's FRQ is the 2007 B version of the test, number 2 questions. It's an extremely short question that involves the loanable funds model, and that's pretty much about it. So let's take a look at this one. All right, first part, assume that the businesses are granted a tax credit on spending for machinery. Using a correctly labeled graph of the loanable funds market, show the effect of the business sector's response on the real interest rate. All right, so the key part of this is the tax credit on spending for machinery. Now, if they give a tax credit for something, that's an incentive to purchase more of it. And when businesses are spending on machinery, that's capital goods. That's part of investment spending. And typically with investment spending, it's going to be a loan that's taken out to make these purchases. So if they're going to buy, a new machine or any kind of device that's going to help them produce goods, it's going to be on a loan. So interest rates really matter when it comes to purchasing this stuff. So if they give a tax credit, what will happen to the loanable funds market? If businesses want to buy more of this stuff, the demand for loanable funds is going to increase. So now there's an incentive to buy machinery, there's an incentive to borrow money, so the demand for loanable funds is going to increase. This increase in loanable funds is going to cause our interest rates, our real interest rates, to go up. Now it comes to a few things. Loanable funds market, you got to make sure it's the real interest rates. And anytime you're showing, it tells you to show the effect of something, make sure you're including the arrows. It helps us show without any doubt that demand is increasing here and that real interest rates are increasing as well. So that covers part A. Part B has us looking at now, assume that instead that the tax rate on interest income from household savings is lowered and there is no change in government budget deficit. Using a second correctly labeled graph of the loanable funds market, show the effect of the household's response on the real interest rate. So we need another model here. But the key parts of this is that the interest income from household savings. All right, so they've lowered this tax rate here on household savings. So if I put my money in a savings account, I'm getting taxed less on the interest that I'm earning from putting it in there. So now I have an incentive to put more money in the savings account because it's not taxed so heavily. The second part, just to keep note of, is that there's no change in the government budget deficit. So the government is borrowing no further funds to, take care of their spending. So we don't need to worry about the demand for loanable funds shifting because of government spending. They're just cutting taxes on savings accounts. So how is this going to affect the loanable funds market? Now, once again, make sure that you're labeling this the correct way. They had you draw a second model, so you have to do this a second time. Most of the points awarded on this one, though, are due to the shifting of the curve, not necessarily the model itself, but you should draw this correctly. So what's going to happen here? If I'm saving more money because I have an incentive to do so, that's going to be an increase in the supply of loanable funds. I'm taking more of my disposable income and my marginal propensity to save is going to increase, causing the supply of loanable funds to actually increase. So once again, show your arrows to show the effect. We have a decreasing real interest rate because of the increase in the supply of loanable funds. So this covers part B. Now the last question says, given your answer to part B, explain what will happen in the country's production possibility curve in the long run. So once again, this is talking about economic growth. And this has to do with the real interest rates. Real interest rates being lower is an incentive for corporations, for businesses, for firms to borrow money to increase investment spending, to invest in capital or, to cause capital formation. So what will that do to the production possibility frontier? The same thing it's going to do to the long run aggregate supply curve or potential GDP. It's going to shift it outward. It's going to shift it to the right. So the lower real interest rates would cause investment spending to increase, causing an increase in capital formation. The increase in capital will cause the production possibilities to expand or to shift to the right. So I know it throws you off a little bit because it kind of goes back to the production possibility frontier, but we know that's basically the equivalent of potential GDP. It's what our economy can produce. It's what the person can produce. So the production possibility frontier represents everything that we can do in a country under the given circumstances. When we increase capital, we can expand that production possibility frontier. All right, that's it for that question. Really short one, so don't mess up these kinds of questions if they show up on the AP exam. All right. Thanks for listening to that one. Make sure that you're checking out the other FRQ walkthroughs that I've done. Remember, you can see all of these FRQs, these past FRQs on the AP College Board website. So make sure you're doing that. So until next time, guys, take